Greetings everybody, it's Umber Rays here today with a little bit of a peek at what is coming in the future for JP, which is Maevia Wezette. Now, I haven't done the story event yet, so personally I don't have any spoilers to share at this point, but we're going to take a look at the new character. We're going to see some details about her, and before we get too far into it, this is a pretty interesting character from what I've seen so far and what I've been able to glean from her basic kit. Now, if you go on to Wotv Calc at this moment, you're probably going to find it a little bit frustrating, as there are a lot of, or quite a few, not translated effects. I'm going to try and get through those and make sure that they're talked about. But I am working off of 3 sources right now. Actually, like you can see the color changing on me. That's me changing over some stuff on my notes, and essentially like 3 different websites to try and make sure that I get everything into this video. But here we are, our new Ice Arched range character. As you can see, I've thrown her into the current party that I have. I guess for a physical damage comparison in this party, you can generally see what some of the characters are running for attack and kind of get an idea for what her attack will roughly be. I think it's pretty comparable to generally what you would see for this type of ranged character, ranged damage type character. But let's hit some points. 10,000 HP, 1700 attack, 43 accuracy, 114 speed, 452 dexterity, move -1 to move, to jump. Single target resistance here is 57%, is pretty good. For comparison, like right now my Agrius is running a 65%. So just, for comparison's sake, in terms of this party. AoE, not so much. But as a range character, you probably don't want this character getting into much in the way of fights. Now here, strength, for resistance is pretty good for what she will generally be meeting in the field. Piercing is a particular weak point, and strike is also fire as well, as you would expect. Resistance is against generally a bunch of stuff, but you'll note curse isn't protected here. And I don't know, like blindness also for just a 25% boost, and we're not looking at much else that I think is too terribly relevant, but still. Either way, coming out with this character now feels kind of interesting to potentially push back against some of the other characters that we've seen that are prevalent in the meta. Specifically, right now, if I have to say, it's probably against Shrek, it's probably going to be anti-mage, and it's also still fairly looking well for just being anti-evasion. But we'll see. So it's 100 cost. This is a permanent unit, 3 move, 2 jump, although with the correct support skill, you lose 1 movement, which is what we want for a range. This Hydragoon and Soldier are her sub-jobs. We'll see if those are worth it. Hat, cloth, and accessories. And that gets into talking about this. Trust Mastery is a piece of armor, which is already not the greatest news. These are always a little bit less than great. High crit rate on this, no accuracy or speed up. The effect, however, decreased chance of being targeted by 6 and a 200% chance for physical damage, increase of 15% for 4 turns. Pretty nice. If the character can work it in before getting into battle, then this is going to be a nice skill for potentially keeping a range character safe. However, I do think it's worth noting that a lot of the times these characters are far enough back that it's not necessarily much of a problem. But, I mean, I can see potentially maybe some characters in the future that would want this ability off this Trust Mastery. It being stuck on an armor as opposed to an accessory is a little bit more problematic, but there might be a reason. Master ability, missile attack resistance penetration of 20, reaction block rate of 40. Dream ability, single target resistance of 15, critical rate of 15, acquired AP of 30%. So that's basically everything that we've got touched on so far on this main screen, minus this, our new bow. And let's get into looking at this thing. I mean, obviously, basically a damage type bow. We have the assault version here. You can see generally what its stats are, but it, you know, hasn't. I do think it does have an aim version. Not 100% sure on that, but the fact that it has aim on it might be relevant if you're trying to hunt evasion. Now, the other two abilities here, taking a look also for condition, basically any ice unit can get this kind of bonus. Ranged ice characters, not necessarily as many with a bow, but there are some, such as, well, I guess Rose is a bad example, but shoot, I forgot her name. The ice character who's friends with the selection cast. Dang, I used Eliza. Boy, I hope I got that right. Physical attack killer up to 15 and move down cancels after taking damage once, which is pretty neat. I think that this is a really neat way of kind of having this sort of ability on a bunch of different characters. Like, there are some other range characters, older range characters that would love move down to potentially up their potential a little bit. I have to say, this is probably my favorite bow in a good long while. Powerful, and it has some good utility, and it's a little bit flexible, not only for new characters but old characters as well. So that's a great. All right, but let's get into talking about everything else, starting off with the limit burst. The limit burst ability here, it can be buffed range buff, so don't be too afraid of what you are seeing right now. She does have range buff of +2 on her support skill, so just increase everything that we're going to talk about today by 2 range, and you'll get a good idea. This breaks physical barriers, dispels auto revive, and reduces physical damage taken. Increase buffs for the target, which is pretty neat that this is in there as well. Not the most interesting ability we're going to talk about today, but the limit burst has a lot of utility for damage dealers, has good range on it, and can catch multiple targets, even if you're not dealing necessarily the most amount of damage. You're breaking those barriers and canceling auto revive. That's quite a few units out there that will be worse for the wear after the character has come out. Talking about support skills. First off, this is one of our new ones. You will see the single target resistance on there. You'll also see an HP effect, which is not translated on Wotv calc. So just so that I can make mention of it. Oh, sorry. Had a little bit of an issue there. Recovers a certain percentage of HP when damage is taken 50% more. Medium amount of HP restoral, and it happens twice. So this is just permanent on her. That's a lot of extra HP. And I think that this is, you know, good. It is a strong ability, but it's not insane for the type of character that it has on it. If this was on like X-Death, someone like that, they would probably benefit way more from this kind of thing than a range character. I don't even know if this will be necessarily that good, but it's kind of interesting that it does proc for, you know, just always being active at the start of battle. Our other ability is fully translated. Attack up of 24%, accuracy of 25, AoE resistance penetration of 40, which is pretty good. That is buffed into her X, and that range +2, which is, you know, basically a guarantee thing, but there it is. 2+ range on, for instance, that limb burst is quite nice, and it'll be nice on everything. I can't see a particularly big reason for switching off of either of these. It is a good idea to keep your agility not necessarily as high for a range character. You want to keep them back. You want your other characters to go ahead. That's fine for the agility to be lower, but Dragoon does have a agility boost increase if you're looking to switch off, and that probably is fine, a perfectly fine trade-off for the single target resistant HP restore. Because as nice as that is, I just don't think that that ability is ever going to play that favorably for this character. It's generally nice once, and then after that, well, probably going to die at that rate anyway. Hydreigoon also gives attack up and defense penetration. But we then have soldiers 60% attack boost if you really want to just try and make the highest damage dealer possible. I guess you could run that. So basically your options are survivability or speed or just damage for that secondary ability. Can't imagine that you ever take this one. Speaking of things that are fairly obvious for build, reflex. It's reflex. For anybody who's curious, it's just straight up reflex. There's no discussion here. Hydreigoon is not worth it. Neither is soldier, just for short range counter damages. This is a 15% chance for just an evading effect on the opponent's attack, physical or magical. Enough said. Now, let's get into her main kit, which is going to have some other really. So basic ability, just a damage ability, can be range buff, of course, with a 30% increase to hit chance. So a little bit higher accuracy source for evasion characters, and those 100% accurate character evaders. Well, here, this ability, 200% chance to ignore fatal damage. Also, you get reduction in magical damage taken by 25% for 4 turns. For ally, not self, if the target has one or more of the following effects, such as for fatal spirit. And then reduce magical damage taken by 5% per self as well if you have ignore fatal spirit. Ignore fatal damage, sorry, not ignore fatal. And then increase range 1 for self if the target has one or more of the effects. So this is cool little ability here that she does get an extra range boost if she is buffing an ally with this kind of effect. But the fact that she can give it to herself or an ally, either way, someone is going to be benefiting from it, and it's a pretty nice ability. All right, next up, our support skill for this character, which is reduce damage taken by 50% for 4 times for self, 25% agility for 4 turns for allies, which is nice. Single target resistance of 25, decrease AP consumption of 30, restore 20 AP for herself, grants the following effect of upon hit, increase single target resistance penetration of 30 3 turns for 4 turns. So nice range of support skills that she actually has, and this ability is pretty flexible to essentially give, catch a bunch of opponent or allies in this very early on in the match. You get AP recovery, you get some decreased AP consumption as well for allies. So there's some good stuff here for not only herself. She's a pretty good team player, and I think most characters would be happy to get caught. Okay. Next ability, decrease missile resistance by 30% for 3 turns. This is great. In Commander Jaden, I think will probably be a good friend of hers, but maybe not. We'll see. And once this ability, which is a single target ability, kills someone, you actually get AP up for killing them. So nice little extra bonus for you. Next, our large AoE and range buff, of course. Now, decreases ice resistance 25%. Ice unit's best friend here. AoE resistance as well is decreased by 25. 200 damage mod on it. 50% chance to inflict frostbite. And absorbs a portion of the damage dealt. This is when it is fully upgraded once she is into her 140. It's a lot of different stuff. But there is something else. Cancels the activation of additional damages. Now, this we talked about previously, not actually listed on Wotv calc yet, but it is a highly desirable effect, because if you think of characters like Shrekken or Ashen Mont, who use follow-up attacks to deal quite a bit of extra damage, being able to cancel that from again, if we're buffing other characters, +3 range on this, you can pretty much take those abilities out but after they are buffed, but before the units get into battle. So that is just really high utility for making sure that you actually. Now, that brings us to the culmination of the main part of her kit, this job level 25 ability. And this is weird because the actual description of this is, I don't think it's actually correct on Wotv Calc as of now, or at least the description is not. This will take some actual time to test and see, but it increases own defense penetration rate for 3 turns, deals damage large to targets within range. Power increases the further the target is from the attacker, which, if you know what this means, this is the anti-squall honeycomb barrier buff, where essentially it draws units into them. This is a character that says, fine, cast that ability if you want. I will counter it by essentially doing the opposite to what you are doing. Whether it completely just cancels out or it actually does more, that I do not know at the type of this, or at the time of this recording. It's just that the power increases up to a distance of 6, and the beginning of the effect is when you are 4 or more away. Either way, for a range unit that has extended range, and looking at how big the range is already on this ability, that's going to be pretty nuts that you're always going to be dealing extra damage for this one, which already has a good mod on it. However, the last one is the really, really weird thing, which is called buff reflection rate, or buff rate decreases for 3 turns. And it's basically, I don't exactly know how, but it's essentially being listed as buff weakening. So if your opponent activates buffs after this attack has hit them, the buffs are not as strong as they would be if this attack had never hit. It's very strange and it's very new, and there are no percentages listed on Wotv Calc, and nobody has exactly tried it yet. So this, for all sense and purposes, is the weirdest ability that we have to talk about today, because I have no idea exactly how to evaluate it. It's something entirely new, and it's really nasty. If you just look at the way this is worded, I would not be wanting to go up against this kind of effect if it is that powerful. I assume it'll probably be a little bit mid, in the same way that we saw the spike effect, but it will be interesting to see if this makes Maevia just incredibly meta dominant or not. This kind of thing is just weird enough that it could get in there and stay. So let's talk about the sub jobs real quickly. First off, her main sub job has paralysis on it and a HP restoral diamond pattern ability. Paralysis is only a 25% chance, so it's nowhere near as good as frostbite, and I'm kind of just done talking about it. I think it's okay, but not anything. As for the HP restoral, it's nice. I mean, the problem is with the separation of units, this probably won't be that good, and if you're already running the support skill for HP restoral, that's also meaning that you're probably just going to ignore this ability. Nothing in her sub particularly entrances me that much, because this isn't going to be a high faith unit. 50 will probably be great for just getting frostbite active when you can, but I don't particularly feel like paralysis is going to make that big of a difference. So talking about the other ones, Soldier does have a 100% hit chance ability with some decent range on it. Can be range buffed, but maybe that's okay. The only thing I think that's kind of interesting with Soldier is that consume your own HP, since she has effectively HP restoral in her kit, and just getting a 50% attack boost for 3 turns on top of all the other attack boosts you can get on this character. That might be actually really, 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 really dangerous. Also, Hydragoon does have a 40% attack boost for 3 turns with a defense and protect. which would grant this character extra ways of protecting yourself and keeping alive. But it does have a move up and agility increase, which is kind of counterproductive. So I think if you are going to be running it, you're essentially running either of the two sub jobs for buffs, for the extra damage potential, with High Dragoon probably being the better of the two. But Soldier, I don't know, it's part of me just wants that extra 10% to really mess with my opponents with range attacks. The one thing that I will say is the HP below 50% does have an extra effect that I am just noticing right now. I think I missed this a little bit earlier, but did catch it. It does seem that when the HP drops below 50%, there is a haste bonus that is also activated off of it. And in potential also increase of reaction block rate of 50. And it's listed 3 times on Wotv calc, but it shouldn't be proccing 3 times. I assume that it is proccing 2 times for when her HP drops below 50%. So she gets 2 haste boosts and a reaction block rating. Either way, I think for support skills, I'm going to recommend the range increase always because it's just way too good. And this other ability is pretty interesting, but maybe just a general speed increase is more on the menu for what we want. Either way, some testing, I'm a little bit so-so on it. Personally, I think that counter-wise, it's very straightforward. Her main counter is just way too good. Reflex is just nasty, even to this day. As for her sub-job, pretty much guaranteed I'd throw the paralysis out for either High Dragoon or Soldier, depending on, pick your poison, whether you want the extra 10% or protect. It's up to you. I don't think both are equally beneficial. But as for this character, she's pretty nasty. Frostbite, status effects, getting rid of opponents' buffs, or at least decreasing what they can buff. Canceling out second activation attacks, missile resistance support, ice resistance down support, basically surviving fatal hits, increasing agility for the team. There's a ton of stuff on this character to like, and I think that her equipment is also great too. So we'll just have to wait and see in the testing, but I think this character is absolutely going to find a place in the meta, and she's going to be happy hunting for the next little while. Anyway, we'll be doing some testing soon. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.